hormone. So this hormone is being secreted by your brain, the pituitary gland. And then some of the oocytes, the immature oocytes and follicles, will be stimulated, and they will just grow bigger and bigger. So they will continue to grow until at a level that the follicular cells can be divided to produce numerous layers of granulosa cells. This is another type of cells, but they are just divided from the follicular cells. So only when the follicles and oocytes they grow into certain kind of the size, okay, then the granulosa cells will be seen. And then these cells will just surround the oocyte and fill the follicle. What does it mean by fill the follicle? We can look at here. So that is the primary oocyte and primary follicle. And then under the FSH stimulation, they will just gradually grow bigger and bigger. And then you can see here, these are called vesicles. Okay, vesicles. Okay, vesicles. C-L-E-S. Vesicles. So these vesicles will be appeared in the follicles, and then they will be filled by some fluid. Okay, and then when they even grow bigger and bigger, and they will become the secondary follicles. Okay, this secondary follicle will continue to grow. They are not yet done. So of course, the FSH secretion will be still there, and then it will keep on stimulating the secondary follicles to grow and grow and grow bigger. When they grow into this size, we're talking about the tertiary follicle. You can see there is a large vesicle here. This large vesicle, we call this as antrum. Okay, inside containing the fluid. And at this stage, we can call this the tertiary follicle, or we can see another name called mature follicle or Gravian follicle. Okay, so when you're reading some papers or reading some books, they're using different wordings to describe all these structures. So what you need to know is, this is the follicle, the final stage of the follicles. Okay, final stage of the follicle. So then, when they develop into the tertiary follicles, the next step will be when there is another hormone being triggering. The tertiary follicles will just merge with the ovary wall and then to bulge out the oocyte, and we call this action ovulation. So secondary oocyte, where is the secondary oocyte? When the primary oocyte completes the first meiotic division, and they form the secondary oocyte already here. When we look at here, right? So that means when they develop enough, when they are undergoing the meiotic division, and then they have complete the first meiotic division, then secondary oocyte will be seen. So it is, of course, inside the tertiary follicle already. So this is talking about when the primary follicle containing the primary oocyte, when it gradually develop, inside the oocyte is also growing as well. Okay, and this secondary oocyte and also the polar body, which is going to be degraded, will be arrested at metaphase 2. So this is a kind of description of the cell cycling. Cell cycling is talking about there is interphase, if you still remember. There is interphase, and then we have the for the meiosis, that is a meiotic 1 and meiotic 2, meiosis 1 and 2. And then this is talking about the development of the secondary oocyte just stop at metaphase 2 and then couldn't complete. Okay, so this secondary oocyte, they can only stop in the middle of the time, in the meiosis 2, but the metaphase 2, and then they cannot complete it because they have to wait for the sperm to help them complete the cycle. So we say that arrested means they just stop there. And then contained within the Gravian follicle, that means the secondary oocyte is actually in the tertiary oocyte. Okay, and some granular cells will form a mold called cumulus oophorus to support the oocyte. That means to support it, to protect it, and also other granulosa cells will form another thing called corona radiata. So this corona radiata and below, not below, but between the coronal radiator and the oocyte, in between it, is called the zona pellucida. I think it is quite familiar for you already, right? So it is just like a thin gel-like layer of the proteins and polysaccharides together. And this is also a kind of protection to the oocyte because they don't want to be fertilized easily. They want to select the best sperm. Okay, so that's why they have these layers to protect it. So under the stimulation of the FSH from the brain, granular cells secrete increasing amount of the estrogen when follicles grow. What you need to be aware here is there are several types of region to secreting different things. So here, so far, what we have learned is FSH from the brain. Okay, so from the pituitary gland, I don't want to write pituitary gland, so it will secrete FSH. And then another hormone here we can see is estrogen. That is the granular cells, the granulosa cells. They're secreting estrogen. Okay, so we have to be aware of these cells producing different things. Okay, and then another thing is the estrogen itself. Estrogen precursor is actually testosterone. You have already learned the male reproductive system, so you should know testosterone is the male hormone. But actually, in both male and female, we have both type of hormone. Why we say that is a female hormone, why we say that is male hormone? That is just because in the female, we produce more FSH, more LH, okay, more estrogen, more progesterone. So those are the female hormones, so-called. But actually, you can also find these hormones secretion in male system, but they do not secrete a lot. Okay, so similarly, we can find testosterone in our body as well. So the estrogen precursor is the testosterone, and it's applied by the cells just outside the follicle. So this is quite interesting that they're just like a supplement. Outside the follicles, they provided the precursor testosterone to the cell, to the follicles, and then allowing the follicle cells, which are the granulosa cells, to uptake testosterone to make the estrogen. Okay, so this is what we have learned so far. So you learned the secondary oocyte. You know that this is from the you can find it in the tertiary follicle or Graafian follicle, and then inside the follicles itself, they can be able to produce estrogen because of the granulosa cell. And another hormone being secreted in the brain is FSH. Okay. Then this is a general idea about what is ovulation. Ovulation usually starts by the 10th or 14th day after the first day of menstruation. So it depends. It is not a fixed number. Some girls may have the ovulation earlier, or some girls may have a little bit later. It depends on how many days of their cycle. Some girls have 28 days of the cycle, but some girls may have 40 days of the cycles. So ovulation usually happens in the middle of the time, but it is not predictable usually, unless you try to test it. You know the quick test, right? Nowadays, the rapid test. Rapid test not only used in the COVID-19, we can also use it in many different tests. One of the tests is hormonal test that can test the LH production, secretion, and also the FSH concentration as well from urine of girls. So if you really want to know what is your ovulation day, you can just use those kind of the test kit, very cheap to test out. Okay. What else I want to say? Yeah, a lot. Actually, I can add a lot of things here. So when we are talking about ovulation, if I don't really want to do the test, I don't want to check my urine concentration of the hormones, then what else I can observe? Actually, for girls, when they reach ovulation, maybe the same day or a little bit theoretically should be a little bit later, within 36 hours of ovulation, they will produce some secretion, which is thick. Okay, which is thick mucus will be secreted after ovulation. So the purpose is just for blocking. So it is how to say, theoretically, why ovulation? Ovulation is just for fertilization. And then usually during ovulation, the mucus should be more diluted. Okay, the mucus secretion from the vagina or uterus should be more diluted to allowing the semen or the sperm to swim easier, go into the reproductive system and then to reach the target easier, let them swim faster. But then theoretically, during ovulation, fertilization will successfully be done. But after ovulation, because it has already assumed that the fertilization happened. So after ovulation, your body will think that, okay, it has been done, so we should block the next army, is it army? The next army of the sperms to go in. So therefore, after ovulation, the female reproductive tract will secrete